listening to Hair Raising Horror Week from the Paranormal Patio Podcast.
Hey, it's Jason from Paranormal Patio. You're listening to Hair Raising Horror Week, and I want to take a little time to thank everyone for their support this week. We're having an awesome week, huge success, and I hope that in the days and weeks to come, as this information will be available online for all eternity, that more and more people will find it. These interviews have been awesome. I've had such a good time, and I can't wait to see what we have in store for us in the future. The week is not done, however, so make sure you stay tuned, follow your schedules, and get all the episodes as they are dropped online. And today's guest is Marco Visconti, and Marco is a practicing occultist and Thelemite, and he has a pretty spooky story about magic gone wrong, and we're also going to talk about some more stuff. So make sure you stay tuned, stick around, and check out Marco's information at the end of the episode for links to his work online. And without further ado, we're off to the races.
Hey gang, I'm Lonnie Scott, host of Weird Web Radio, and you're listening to Hair Raising Horror Week. Stay weird out there, my friends.
Hey, welcome back to Paranormal Patio. As always, I'm Jason. My guest this evening, Marco Visconti. Marco, how in the world are you, my friend?
I am doing great. It's late at night here in Glastonbury, UK, and I'm enjoying it. It's great.
I'm glad that you brought up it's late at night there. For everybody listening, I'm recording a lot earlier in the day, so the traffic in my patio is a little crazy. We got a lot of farm vehicles on the road right now, and if it sounds like we're at the Grand Prix, ignore it and focus on Marco and myself.
And this is a paranormal patio after all, so it can be a different time during the day. Because
Exactly.
Exactly.
There are no limits.
Exactly.
So, Marco, you're here because of Hair Raising Horror Week. That's this thing that we're doing where every day of the week of Halloween, we're putting out a podcast episode that exists solely to terrify our listeners because it's Halloween time. Everybody likes to get a little fun scare. And I've known you from Hellier, from your analysis and what you bring from your experience and your knowledge. You've let everybody know just a little bit about where you come from, what you're doing, and all that good stuff.
Sure. I am, let's say that I think I can be described as an occultist, a magician, and not so much as a stage magician, but the kind that, invokes angels and evokes demons at night. So pretty much, the kind of strange person that has been almost like called to action by the Hellier phenomena. And I guess that I ended up a little bit under the limelight through, thanks to, Greg and Dana and Carl and Connor and Tyler, whatever they've been doing, because I chanced upon Hellier in December last year, actually. And, for me, it was almost like a life-changing event because I was like, wow, either this is how is it possible that, I'm watching something on Amazon Prime that pretty much tells the world about everything that I've been, experiencing and working on in my magical career, if you want, in my magical endeavors. Without going too much in detail, because, I've been writing about it, and I guess people have heard about me speaking about it. But, I'm a Thelemite. That is, my magical practice is based on the magical philosophy and religion, if you want to call it like that, called Thelema, which was channeled by and ushered in by Aleister Crowley in 1904. And, of course, Thelema plays such a vast role in Hellier, to the point that I often say it's fine if you think, if you look at Hellier and you think that, Thelema shouldn't have any space in it, but the reality there is that, the instigators of the Hellier phenomenon, David Christie, Terry Wrist, whoever they are, they speak Thelemic. And, for me, I was listening and I was watching and I was like, oh, this is my language, and maybe I can help understand, I'll help others understand what's happening here. And, I shoot an email to Greg. We've been in touch, and, even it took all the time it needed for us to properly connect, because, I can only imagine the level of, stress that whenever you put yourself under that kind of spotlight, you are bound to receive. In a previous life, I often like to say, and that means up until 7 years, 5 years, between 5 and 7 years ago, depends on the day, I was a professional musician of some renown in the industrial music scene. So I remember what it was like, to be a known entity, even maybe in a small community, but to have a lot of people looking at you. So, it took several months for me and Greg to properly connect. And it was Lonnie Scott's, podcast that I did the chat that I had with Lonnie, on the Spirit Box podcast by my friend Dara Maisonfield, that actually kind of turned Greg and the rest of the Hellier crew on what I was saying, because I guess they realized that I wasn't just one of these apparently many crazy, prophets that were trying to tell them what Hellier was, but I was more telling them, you had an experience, I recognize the experience. This is my experience, which is similar in many points to yours. And that led to PhenomenaCon 3 weeks ago, which, I'm so grateful to both Greg and Dana for putting that on. We often say in the last year, we often say oh, this is weird. These are weird times. This is a strange year. And I guess everybody's very tired of listening to that, but it's also very true. This is an year that we will remember it. So to have, Greg and Dana and the rest of the crew working so hard to create a space and a community for people to just come together and leave their worries behind for those 3 days. I was watching it constantly, and, of course, time difference, which is quite, 5 hours for me. But it was such a great vibe. It felt like going to a music festival, which is the kind of experience I know more than Paranormal Conference, which I've never been to one yet. PhenomenaCon was my first one. But I want to do the real thing at some point. But like I said, for me, I remember what it was like to go into music festivals, and it felt like that, meeting new people and hearing interesting speakers, and all being so well presented by Greg and Dana. And those two have been putting serious hours behind it, and it's great. I guess it's fantastic that we have the technology to do this now. Imagine even talking to you right now. It's great that for all the crazy stuff that's been happening in the world, at least we have the potential to cross the boundaries of space and time, which is a magical thing, in order to come together and share these experiences. So I guess that's me in a nutshell.
I would also like to say that your panel at PhenomenaCon was awesome. You were one of 3 of the speakers that I went back and watched a second time, because this time they were gracious enough to leave the stream up after it had ended, so I was able to go back and watch some more. You blew me away, because a lot of the stuff that you had to say, even though it wasn't the first time you said it, was the first time I had heard it. Mm-hmm. And since then I've heard it, multiple times from other interviews that you've done and stuff that you've put out on your website and everything. And I was like, I would really like to talk to this man, because we have a commonality between us. Just, you mentioned that Hellier changed your life, and in a lot of ways I feel like it did mine. I was, from a really young age, I was always really into the paranormal scene, and I had kind of fallen off, and I had kind of just gotten trapped in the mundane, the everyday. And Hellier came out, and I think I've probably watched it all the way through, somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 16 times. But all of a sudden,
I'm not alone. Okay, good to know.
You know, all of a sudden, I've bought all these books that I would have never known existed. I've read all these books that I've never known existed otherwise. And to backtrack, so Hellier had been on Amazon Prime for a while, and I'm not a religious person, so to speak, and just the fact that it said hell in the title, I was like, I'm not gonna watch that. Like, no, it's not for me. So eventually, you know, one of those late nights, I was like, well, there's nothing that I haven't seen right now that I have any interest in, so I'm just gonna try this, and we'll see how it goes. And I expected it to be terrible. I expected the production quality to be awful, and the first episode starts, I'm like, okay. And then it kind of trickles off into a little bit of the Mothman and Indrid Cold story, that's my bread and butter. That was the one of the big things that I was really into researching, was the Mothman case from Point Pleasant. And so I was like, okay, I'm all in. And then, yeah, like I said, I've watched it, you know, so many times. Season 2 comes around, and they're doing the alien abduction hypnosis experiment, and it said Mattoon, Illinois on the screen, and I thought, that's like less than an hour away from where I live.
Wow.
Like, wow. Okay. And then, you know, Lonnie introduced himself, and I was like, he's from Mattoon. I wonder if he is online. So I looked him up, and sure enough, there he was, and you know, we had a little chat, and then I ended up doing all of his graphic design for his web store, and I do his t-shirts and stuff, and it's like, oh, wow, see, we got this connection from this show that for whatever reason, one day I'm like, okay, here we go.
You know what? You're describing something that, I mean, from my perspective, you know, let's say as the official magician, right? That is precisely what initiation should do. And by initiation, I don't mean something, you know, like joining an order and going through a ceremony. It's about like being initiated by nature, that's the real DNA of initiation. And when you do it, a big theme in Hellier, of course, is synchronicities, right? And the synchronicities, that can lead you, you know, to meet people that you will never met, but they live down the road from you or something like that. And then maybe they become, you know, meaningful connections in your life. That is precisely what magic should do. In my life, you know, I belong to many different, orders, and, often people join these places, this communities, organization, thinking that they will get, you know, let's say the Hellier experience, right? The string of synchronicity. And that never happens. Because maybe right now we live in times whereby, you know, the age of information brought a new set of rules and a new set of potentials. And it's more like realities like Hellier that will give each of us who's willing to listen, basically the opportunity to reclaim your birthright, which is initiation, which is the synchronicity, which is, you know, finding the blue balloon, etc., etc. And I'm absolutely excited to see what happens next, especially because we are, like I said, I feel like we are at an interesting juncture in time where things can go any way, but knowing that there is like this big, pulse that comes from the Hellier phenomena, I want to believe, you know, I want to be positive that, I don't know, maybe 2021 won't be as bad as 2020. We'll see.
I hesitate to think that it could be worse. I hope it's not. I hope we never know worse.
Life can always surprise you.
I'm aware, and by saying that, I've probably already set into course a chain of events that are going to unfold and destroy my world, so.
Don't say that.
Hopefully not.
You know, magically, you always want to install a good potential. Trust me on this, okay? It's just like, always think for the best. It's
yes.
always
not just because of, maybe indirectly because of my fascination with the cellular case, but right now, despite the world falling apart, like, this has been one of my, like, best years as far as, like, you know, I'm doing this podcast now. I have this creative outlet that I haven't had before. My waking, regular Joe Schmo life, like, I've got a great job. I'm making great money. My family's all healthy and doing well. So really, despite the world burning, I'm doing great. So
it's interesting you mentioned that, because my experience is not different. Maybe not as positive, but definitely positive. Like, it's been a year where we had a death in the family, and my partner has been suffering from that a lot. And so we've been dealing with that, but at the same time, our jobs are doing great. I was able to, due to the pandemic and having more time, because you don't go out anymore, right? And there's also all the restrictions that brought along. That was how I was able to finally really invest into my magical community, the one that I started online on Patreon, and then now we just reached 102 people on it, which I never thought we would ever go, past 20. I mean, who wants to be on a Patreon where you listen to a person you never met in real life about how to do magical rituals? Well, apparently there's a lot of people that want that, and I'll tell you, my experience with magical community they're not great. Like, if you go on my website and you see my experience with OTO, you will see that it hasn't been great and I don't want to delve into that because I speak about it all the time. I mean, it's on my website, you can read it. But it's almost incredible how in the year of tribulations and ordeals for everybody, people that have been hearing the call of the initiation, hearing the call of this pulse towards becoming more than human, like, they come together, and this community is fantastic. And I'm talking about my community, but then I hop on Greg and Dana's server on Discord, and they're fantastic people. And then I hop on my friend Georgina, that darling, very young woman in New York, that she's a fantastic practitioner. She has a great YouTube channel, and you hop on her Discord server, and it's full of good people. And I'm 42. I'm kind of jaded with life when it comes to that. But then I'm like, no, maybe this is not all wrong. Like, this year did bring the good people together. Maybe there is a chance that next year will be better because of all of this. Or I don't know, maybe the UFOs come and we'll die. That's also
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Hey, it's Michael. You guys are listening to the Paranormal Patio on the Hair-Raising Horror Week. Stay tuned for some more scary stuff.
In a sleepy little town in southwest Minnesota lies a house where the inhabitants are not of this world, the Boyd House. Some disturbing behaviors include audible voices and EVPs, equipment interaction, and moving objects. Now, for the first time ever, a documentary has been made. Join us as we watch the town and house in the days gone by. Exclusive interviews with investigators as they share their experiences and evidence from their nights at the Boyd House. Check out our Facebook page, Boyd House, or on YouTube on our St. Croix Paranormal page to view this spooky adventure.
There's some scary things out there. Let's put it like that.
That's a perfect transition, because I asked you here to scare the life out of my listeners, and you said you thought you had a really good story that you could share. I
do. All right, let me see if I can. I will preface it a little bit by saying that, if you listen to when I get interviewed, or if you read to, my blogs, I often say that, the magical experience it's a positive one, it's a good one. Like, as long as you approach it, with the right amount of preparations, with the right amount of training, there is no evil aliens, there is no scary demons. Well, I learned that because let's say that when I was younger, and we're going now back to, the setting is Rome, in Italy, where I was born and raised. And it is the summer of 2003. So I'm not exactly that young because I'm 25, right? But let's say I'm very reckless. And at the time, I was a member of an order called Dragon Rouge. Now, the Dragon Rouge is, let's say, if you can imagine like the Slytherin of Harry Potter, but worse. Like actually wanting to be scary and actually wanting to be exploring the dark side of everything. I was a member of the group, and another member of the order, a sister from Poland. I will not name names because she's still writing. She's not a member of that order, as I am not anymore. But at the time we both were, and she came and visit me. Well, me and other people in Italy. But she stayed at my place. And since we were both young, I mean, 25 maybe is not that young, but let's say at the time I was reckless, very reckless, very different from what I am now. And we decided that it's time to try an evocation of the god Dagon, which is this amphibious, monstrous creature of the abyss. And so we gather all our ritual tools. We gather the necessary candles, regularly like black and red. And we inscribe them, we anoint them with oil, magical oil of Abramelin, and we bring the incense, and at night, like at the dead of night, like past midnight, at the time I was living close to the seaside. Rome, most people don't know that Rome has a seaside, it's called Ostia, and I was living nearby. So we jump in the car and like 10 minutes drive, we are in the seaside, and there's like all sorts of like nooks and crannies where you can go by the sea, because the idea is that Dagon is these monstrous creatures that live in the abyssal depths of the sea. If you read like Lovecraft, that's the Dagon. That's the Dagon we were going to evoke. And when I say evoke, it means, bring it to physical manifestation. I mean, this is the kind of stuff I would never suggest to do anymore, but still. So, what happens there? Like at the time, I was already doing magic for 10 years, so I wasn't a complete newbie. But I never fully tried something to that scale. But we thought we could handle it, and so it's the dead of night. It's 2 a.m. going into 3, and we're literally by the shore, like as where the sand hits the sea, pretty much, and we create a magical circle in the sand with some specific glyphs. We put all the candles and whatnot. And it's summer, but it starts to get incredibly cold. Like, incredibly cold. To the point I'm shivering right now because I'm remembering it. And the sea at night, it has that oily feel where you cannot never really see where the sky ends into the sea. It all becomes like an amorphous mass. It looks at you and it gives you the chills pretty much. And it's dark apart from there's no moon. And I guess it's almost like a movie in many ways. And just to let you know, these things happens. So whenever you see these things in movies, it's because crazy people like me did it. And then, the directors or the screenwriters, I've heard that story. So whatever, to cut a long story short, we do our invocation, which requires also us, we need to cut our ends, we need to use blood. And like I said, imagine it's the dead of night, but everything becomes absolutely, absolutely quiet. There's nothing. It's almost like, not even not even the waves of the seas. It almost like everything muffles down. Now, the problem there is that as this happens, I start hearing something from behind me, and I turn, and basically, what I feel is almost like the Baywatch was coming over, with one of these motorbikes, but it's not a motorbike. It's something. And those things that I see, like at first I feel like they were like the motorbike's lights. They're not motorbike lights. They're more like some sort of like lights, colors into this amorphous mass. So it's not the Baywatch that's coming over. And that's where I start to freak out, because that wasn't supposed to happen. This entity, this creature we were calling, was supposed to come from the sea. And the problem is that as I freak out, and this thing, whatever that is, this amorphous block with these two eyes, lights, keeps coming closer, I turn to see my friend, and she is nowhere to be seen. She's gone. Completely gone. And that's where I really start to freak out, because I'm like, what is, either she's fucking with me, sorry for my French, or something, or we lost control of the situation. And I keep hearing it's almost like this situation whereby everything is silence, but there's this thing coming my way. And my friend is nowhere to be seen. I don't know where she is. And so the one thing I do is that, in magic there is this thing called banishing. So instead of continuing with this ritual, which clearly has gone south, I banish. And then it's almost like I, snap out of reality. Or rather, I snap back into reality. Because literally, like, I turn again, and it's almost like the sea is now the waves are crashing again. That thing that I thought I was seeing that was coming closer is gone, and my friend is actually not passed out, but she's like leaning on the sand, and she stands up as well and say, "What happened?" Basically she had no memories of what was going on. Now, this is not even it, because we decide it's time to leave, and we get all our stuff, we go to the car, and the car is nowhere. Like, we parked it, we remember where we parked it, but we go there, and that's, at first I think, okay, they stole the car. It's Rome, it happens. But then we decided it doesn't matter, we cannot stay there anymore, we need to walk home. And the walk home is around 40 minutes. It's not that much, but it's a walk. And, like, I cannot possibly tell you the sense of dread and the sense of being followed that both of us were feeling. To the point that it was also almost, there was also magnified by the fact that, and this is something that might sound silly, but I didn't know at the time if the person that was near to me was my friend, or if it was something that was cold and was trying to, trick me to bring it or her or back home with me. And this is something that you hear a lot in, fairy lore, with, the concept of changelings, when you bring down like the other that tricks you and then does things to you as you sleep. Long story short, like I said, if the walk home would have been 40 minutes, we arrive home as the sun starts, coming up. And up to this day, I don't know what happened, because, apart from telling you that it was basically a botched magical operation, and that definitely conjures something that was basically flickering reality around me and around her, because turns out that eventually, this person starts behaving normally again, and as the sun comes up, things ease down, and not so much because, evil comes at night. It's just because we use that as a way of feeling better in many ways. But it's also true that we lost almost 2 hours, because the walk home was supposed to be 40 minutes and the sunrise was 2 hours away. So that's my spooky story very much. To this day, I cannot tell you what happened, apart from knowing that I was young and stupid and reckless and tried something that possibly I should not have tried. I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for that kind of, working with those more darker sides of magic that do exist. And often I speak about, you have the bad UFO experience if you're not ready for it. Well, that was my bad UFO experience because I was definitely not ready for it. That person, I mean, after that, she went back to Poland. We never really spoke after that anymore. It was this kind of thing. It's like, let's never talk about it. And in fact, we pretty much parted ways. We weren't like best friends, but we were, let's say, co-explorers of the strange. We got the strange that night. Big time. By the way, the car did appear again, because the next day I went back to the beach to see, and the car was exactly where I parked it. So they didn't steal it, but sadly, strangely, it wasn't there when I was looking for it. So my point is, don't try it. You can do magic. Definitely do magic. Magic will make you better, but don't be reckless with magic, because that's when you will get the bad UFO, or in my case, I don't know, the bad Lovecraft mythos experience. Eventually, I learned that in order to attempt evocation, you must really work on your own, what I call the body of light, your own energetic field, if you want, your own aura. Those are all terms that pretty much mean the same thing. But only once you have that, let's say, extra layer of consciousness around you, of energy around you, that's when you can attempt to, pretty much open the door and let this ultra-terrestrial consciousness to come in and take human, like say, physical form. Evocation is serious stuff. Don't try it at home unless you're ready.
So, this was an example of magic gone wrong. You don't often hear a lot from practitioners about cases where, hey, look, this is something I did and it worked, and this was the result. And I think that causes a lot of the skepticism that we have in today's society towards magic. Mm-hmm. Can you shed a little light on some things possibly that you've done that prove to you, at least, that, hey, this stuff is real, it does work?
I've done a lot of magical operations for, magic of result. That is, you set up an intent and you obtain what you wanted. The last thing I did with my partner, we left London, at the end of lockdown, which was early June. And we didn't have a place to go. We didn't have a house. We didn't buy a house. We didn't rent a house. We just put together a magical sigil that we activated through some quite advanced operations. And lo and behold, the next day, I turn on my computer. I go on Facebook, and which I don't use much, and the first thing I see on Facebook Marketplace, which I never used before, nor I ever used after, was a person basically having to suddenly leave Glastonbury and needing to rent his fantastic house, which was exactly what we wanted. We wanted a bigger house, more rooms. We wanted a garden. We wanted a greenhouse. We have a greenhouse. We wanted a terrace. We have a terrace. We wanted it to be in a specific point of town, like, not in the center, but close enough to the center that we could walk there. We literally asked for it the day before. That's magic. Like literally, you ask for it, you receive it. Can everybody have that kind of success? It takes time. It takes understanding of what you're doing, which is not so much. I see a lot of people online that want to believe in magic, and they say that the only thing they need to do is to put their mind to it. That's something called New Thought. I guess the biggest example of it was something that was very popular around 10 years ago, maybe still is, called The Secret. Like, it's positive thinking, it's affirmation. You have to invite the positivity into your life. That will not do anything. It's not about that. It's about that and learning what to do, what kind of, let's say, nuclear combinations you have to create magically in order for that intent to properly be propelled wherever it needs to go for things to happen. And it's not as obvious and as simple as it might seem. Which is why, again, most people try magic and they never get results. And then they say, it's all bollocks. It's not that it's bollocks. It's that you're not good enough. That's the reality of that. Because magic is not just going to the gym. Magic is going to the gym enough to train as an Olympic athlete. And then magic, you get success out of magic as whenever you're able to be at the Olympics, pretty much. It's everybody can do it, because everybody can do it if they decide to put the hours behind it, if they decide to put all the dedication you need to become an Olympic athlete, which is it's an incredible feat, but it's possible. So in many ways, what I'm trying to tell here is that you can change reality according to your will. First of all, you must know what your will is, and that is that's a trajectory on its own. Like, it's more about, pretty much going to the gym and build up your body. And then, in order to achieve, success in asking for something and receiving it, you must do the Olympics.
Do you think, in the same vein, that there are people who are born just natural athletes, there are then people who are born just natural successful magicians?
There is talent. I think that there are people that are more, some people are born, somebody can be more, better at playing guitar than drums, or better at, football than volleyball, Yes, there can be a natural talent, but everybody who puts their mind and, decide to focus their will and do all the things needed to get to the end line, they will have results with magic. Maybe it will be more difficult because some people are born, it's true, some people are born with more talent than others. I wasn't particularly talented with it. I mean, I had to go through all the hoops and jump through all of them in order to start having, positive success and again and again and again. But then I'm going to tell you something else. The thing with magic is that once you start to obtain success, once you start to realize that, yes, you can get a better job. Yes, you can get the lover you desire. Yes, you can, anything you want, you think you want. What magic does to you is that it changes you alchemically in order for you to understand what is your true will. And that is a process where pretty much you stop caring about results, because that's when you move into what I call theurgy, which is the kind of magic that it's focused more on building yourself, in a vertical way as opposed to an horizontal way. So it's not so much about obtaining things anymore, but it's about receiving messages from, the ultra-terrestrials, achieving union with your personal God, the Holy Guardian Angel. And that becomes so much more important than anything else, because that's when you know who you are, that's when you know your true will, and once you know that, it's pretty much that wherever you are perfect. Like, you have all the money you need, which might be nothing or might be billions, depending on who you are. You have you have in your life the love you need, you have the support you need, in order for you to just concentrate on keep growing vertically. Like, keep going back to the source, keep going back to God. God, whatever you want, whatever you understand God to be, which, your understanding of God will be different from mine, will be different from anyone else. Could be no understanding at all. Magicians can be atheists. Magicians can be anything they will themselves to be once they know their true wills.
I guess the reason I ask, and I'll get your opinion on this, this is not something I've ever talked about anywhere to anyone for any reason. Let's see, go back to around 2004 probably. I was working as a temporary worker in a factory, and that's all I'm going to say. And every week you would have a different position in the factory. You'd work in a different area. And I would find myself in areas working by myself a lot, and I would think, I think I'd like to work over there. And then they would come around with your schedule for the next week, and then I would be scheduled to be over there in the place where I just thought about. That happened several times. Like basically any time that I wanted to do a certain job for the next week, I'd just pick up. I'd like to do that job. And at the time, I had mentioned earlier that I used to be more into this type of stuff than I had been in the previous decade or so. I had been reading a lot of Jane Roberts, her books, channeling Seth. Are you familiar with Jane Roberts at all?
No, actually, I'm not.
Okay, so she was a channel and was constantly channeling this entity called Seth. He was a never physical intelligence from who knows where. Her and her husband, they wrote several books, and it was just one of those things that I had found and gravitated to, and I had read a lot. And Seth's message was always that you create your own reality. It wasn't in a magical sense the same way that you talk about it, but I don't know if it was just the mindset that I was in where I would think, I want to do that, and then I would do that. Something that was beyond my physical control that I was able to sort of will into existence.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned this because, Seth is another name for Hadith in Telema, and Hadith is one of the three main figures, if you want, in Telema. Also, what you describe, from my perspective, what you describe is, again, and it's funny because I just spoke with someone else like a few hours ago, and she was telling me something similar. And it really ties into, for me, from my perspective, the idea that, the Hellier phenomenon is really like retrocausality things around, pretty much. Because what you're describing is pretty much what I would say called like the vision of the angel, which in your case wasn't a vision. It was more about seeing the possibility of magic. Or maybe even like hinting at the possibility of magic. That is like, is it true that if I want something happens? What I believe it is that from time to time we are given these nudges from pretty much our future selves, and say, hey, don't throw this idea away. Stick with it. Not so much because you wanted the better job or you wanted to work over there, but because now, like many years later, we're discussing it together, and possibly now you are considering the possibility of maybe trying magic, maybe trying something more to see if I'm right, or maybe prove me wrong. But this is the process. This is the process of the initiation. And it unfolds over time, and it unfolds over things that seems unconnected because we think of time as a linear, step-by-step process, whereby it's not a linear thing. It's more like a tapestry seen from above. And from that vantage point, all the things are connected in ways that we don't see from here.
Let's change gears. I want to ask you one more thing before I let you go. I know you've spoken a little bit about the Hellier stuff, but it's just sort of tangential to Hellier. I mentioned my interest in the Mothman case, and Indrid Cold was always a big part of that. What are your thoughts on Indrid Cold?
Oh, Indrid Cold is to me, is an an expression of the ultimate ultra-terrestrial consciousness. That pan, is a Greek word. In fact, means all, right? That all, and by all means everything you can think of and everything that you cannot think of. That's what pan truly is. And Indrid Cold is, let's say, it's a fractalization into our space-time continuum of that infinite potential. Okay? So Indrid Cold for me is one of those, again, secret chiefs, if you want to call, like secret masters, ascended masters, that group of consciousness, which in fact is the one panic consciousness that will constantly appear in the human experience in order to push humanity to the next level. And it's almost never by big events, but it's by, little nudges. Okay? Now, when it comes to Hellier and how Indrid Cold is related to that, and how it's related, for instance, with terrorists, the message that they received, the fact, Ink and Black is still here and the Third Order is MIA. That is an interesting message because it's something that actually connects with ideas that are found in the esoteric community, and that is that there is a third order, this almost groups of ascended masters that try to guide humanity to the next level, but they've been in disarray, okay, for a while. Cannot really go into details as to why, because it would take like 3 hours, and I would have to preface it with a lot of other concepts. But let's say in a nutshell that, Telema was channeled in 1904. That was the coming of a new eon. A new eon is a new set of rules. And possibly this new set of rules has brought the Third Order in disarray. Like they're scrambling. They're trying to find, maybe there's been, elections, and the elections didn't go very well, and, things are happening again. So for me, Indrid Cold is one of those consciousness that has been lost onto this plane. He's trying to go back to where he should be, but he has lost the connection with the Third Order. Now, what, Terry Wrist was trying to say is that pretty much one side of the Hellier phenomenon and one side of the use, why we should try and use, the Star Sapphire, and basically that means, become such a good magicians that we can use the Star Sapphire ritual, is to help whatever Indrid Cold is to go back home, which sounds terribly like E.T., but it's definitely not, it's a bit more complicated than that.
What about the Mothman? What do you think that was?
I do think that, for instance, something that comes into Hellier, I think they're right. They're bang right. That is that whatever the Mothman is, because the Mothman was what I would call like a bad UFO experience, because people were scared by this creature, right? They were seeing this thing, and that was terrifying. Every time you see something that's terrifying, it's because either you fucked up, because like me in the story I told before, you went way over your pay grade, or because the communication is not fine-tuned, and both the signal and the receiver are not working well together, and then this transmission takes over almost a life of its own, and it can be very jarring, scary, dangerous even. That's what I think the Mothman was, like possibly, the Indrid Cold aggregate of consciousness trying to go back home or trying to connect with the Third Order and failing, and by failing, creating this almost like this disturbance in the Force, if we want to use Star Wars reference, that was then received as the Mothman. That's my reading of it.
Sort of like you're listening to music on the radio and you turn the dial just a hair and it's staticky and garbled.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly that.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
All right, Marco, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a great chat, and I hope that we're able to talk a little bit more as time goes on.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a pleasure to be on the Paranormal Patio, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, and before you go, I'd love for you to promote your website and all the stuff that you're working on so that everybody can check you out.
Of course. My website, where all my writings so far and all my links, is marcovisconti.org. Or you can also find me on Twitter, on Instagram, and of course on Patreon, patreon.com/marcovisconti, whereby that's pretty much it. It has become my focus. Like I said, like the community just reached past the 100 patrons milestone. We're 102 now. Which is a very
congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's impressive, and it's very, very it's alive. Like we have one live stream a week. We have plenty. I mean, I write plenty of content because it's becoming pretty much my focus, and which I'm absolutely. I mean, I'm so lucky to be able to do that, and we have a fantastic Discord server, which pretty much it's 24/7 because we have people from all over the world. So, you have people they're always talking about this magic and about, Hellier and about everything that you can imagine. Pretty much listen to me, you'll find it there. So if that's something that you're interested, you can join us there and, come call Terry Rist on the phone as we do every week.
Well, I'm intrigued. All right, Marco, thanks again. It's been an honor, and I'm looking forward to the future, my friend.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
Hey everybody, this is Christian.
My name is Dustin.
And you're listening to Paranormal Patio
during Hair-Raising Horror Week.
Until next time, keep the fire going.